Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Jeff and Jenifer Hughen. What a great episode, Anthony.
It was educational, and I tell you, I had a great time.
Yeah, educational and entertaining.
Yeah, Jeff impressed me in many ways. One, he had some good zingers, man. He got you a couple times, which I can't wait to go back to the video and see your face, because he came out of nowhere.
He did. I've had a couple zingers where it's like, that was funny, but man, there was some that was like a left hook that I did not see coming. So
like even you laughed quite a bit.
He got me good. Well done, Jeff. Well done. But Anthony, let's touch on our takeaways here. What's a takeaway or two that you had from this interview?
I would say this interview went by fast. Mm-hmm. So this might be more of our longer interviews. However, I think there is some great content here to really hear the story about infinite banking from a client's perspective, not from a coach's perspective. And a couple of things I like what Jeff had talked about was we had talked about like his why or like what's next. And he had talked about being wealthy doesn't mean dollars. It's more in time, mm-hmm. of him being able to have in control of his time. The biggest takeaway I got from this is how what the impact infinite banking had on him and his family. And I don't necessarily mean dollars, but this happens quite a bit, where infinite banking allows us to free up our dollars from our 401k and Wall Street, but also it frees up our mind to do our own individual investments where we're in control. We're not tied to Wall Street or a government controlled plan. And he's going to share some numbers of he hit it out of the park. I mean, talk about a grand slam on some of these land deals. And so you're going to have a good experience, I think, listening to Jeff and Jen on how they went through the process with infinite banking. Cameron, what was some of your takeaways?
What I wanted to share here is I wanted to share a sentiment that Jeff discussed with us after we stopped recording. Mm-hmm. It was really good. And so I want to make sure that I bring it up here to the front, make sure everybody hears it. And I do want to give him credit for it, even though I told him that I'd steal it from him, but I was joking. One of the things that he said is another intangible, right? Anthony, you mentioned he does talk about some of the successes they have and some of the home runs that they've hit. But one of the things that he shared at the end was that the key to their success was having both of them in the marriage working towards wealth and understanding kind of infinite banking and the strategy that they've implemented. And so the advice that he shared was, hey, if you're out there and you're implementing this, make sure you're pulling your spouse. And that's going to be key to your success moving forward. And so that one hit home for me. Jess and I have always talked about finances. We've always kind of been in step in planning and strategy and stuff. And so I thought it was great. Definitely worth sharing there. But outside of that, man, you know what? There's a lot of good stuff in there, and there's a lot of zingers that are coming my way. So hope you guys enjoy this interview with Jeff and Jenifer Hughen. As mentioned earlier, Jen is a self-proclaimed CEO of the Hughen household, but because that doesn't quite pay the bills, she's a part-time contract CFO. And then Jeff is still working. He's an airline pilot with the goal of leaving the airline in 25, 26. They've got 2 kids and own small businesses and are LPs in a few other ventures. And he's shared with us that his main goal is to be wealthy with time, take our kids to school every day, and be available to help guide them through life. So enjoy this episode. If you're an investor or want to be an investor and you're looking to create passive income that exceeds your monthly expenses, then this is the podcast for you. Here on the Infinite Wealth Podcast, we combine the philosophies of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, along with Nelson Nash's infinite banking concept. Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. And today's Casual Friday. I'm wearing a hoodie, but there's nothing casual about what these two have been doing in using their infinite banking policies. And I'm excited to get started this conversation today with Jeff and Jenifer Hughen. Brief introduction. Jen is the self-proclaimed CEO of the Hughen household, but because that does not pay the bills. She's a part-time contract CFO. Jen, thanks for coming today. And
Thank
Jeff,
you.
you're still working. He's flying as an airline pilot with the goal of leaving the airline business in 2025, 2026. And so we will respectfully not name the airlines. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for having us. I know we've been trying to put this together for a little while. So we're happy to get this going.
Well, you know what I noticed? Our guests are better dressed than one of the co-hosts. But anyways, on that note,
it's a nice hoodie. It's a nice hoodie. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm happy to, and I'm excited to kind of dive into our conversation today. But if you guys could, I'm going to throw it to you. Just give us a little bit of background. Tell us about yourselves briefly before we dive into kind of how you guys have been using infinite banking.
Yeah, sure. So I've been flying airplanes roughly since I was about 13 years old. Got into the airline business and have been in that for roughly 20 years now. And I've always wanted to, use my brain in other capacities. And so this, kind of helps me do that. I'm definitely an entrepreneur at spirit, maybe not a great one, but definitely want to be in that space.
well, Jeff, when you share some of the stories of what you've done, I think you put yourself as a good entrepreneur.
Yeah.
All right.
Speaking of not being a great one, did Anthony tell you guys he's a CPA? But we don't have time for that today. Jen, let's hear a little bit about you.
So I'll piggyback off of what Anthony kind of refers to himself, a recovering CPA. So took the traditional route out of college with public accounting. After I got tired of that and no work-life balance there, I stepped into more the private industry route. And then we moved we were originally from Arizona, had a brief stint in Colorado, landed here in Texas. And so after our second child was born, I was working for a large publicly traded company as their tax director. And Jeff was doing more of his pilot job and gone a lot. And obviously with 2 kids and trying to find nannies and daycare and all of that, I finally said something needed to change. So I gave my resignation and said we were going to figure it out.
Yep.
So,
And that's scary. Like, not gonna lie, that's a scary place to be, believing in yourself, but it works.
No, I think that's great. And thanks for sharing that.
That's scary step, right? Putting faith out there and just stepping out and doing it. Well, congratulations. But awesome. Introduce us to infinite banking. How'd you guys come across this idea?
So this is going to be, it might be long-winded, but I'm going to try to keep it on point. So several years ago, I've actually had 2 introductions to this, but I'll give you the first one and the second one. It might be a little bit longer. So roughly about 8-9 years ago, I was flying with a guy. I was very junior in my seat, so doing red eyes across the country over the over the Gulf and the waters routes over Atlantic. And so when you're flying red eyes, there's lots of boredom. And this one guy I was flying with, he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of whole life?" And I was like, "Yeah, maybe a little bit. I don't know." And at the time I was very ignorant, didn't really know what was what. So, over the course of the month, so back in that time frame, we were flying with the same captain, the same FO for the entire month. There wasn't a whole lot of the ability to move things around just because I was very junior. So anyway, so over the course of that month, we started talking about what he does on the side, which was selling whole life policies. He was doing 10-pay policies, and he was kind of just showing like, "Hey, this thing gets cash value, you could use it this way or whatever." But it wasn't really, infinite banking. So, fast forward a couple years after that, I was flying with one of my now very, very close friends, Javier. I asked him if I could use his name on this here. And so we were flying, and we were in Cleveland on like a 30-something hour overnight, like, beautiful downtown Cleveland. And we're sitting at a outdoor little pub, just trying to feel each other out, having a beer. And this guy comes up to us and he says, "Hey man, I need to use your phone." And so immediately, I'm like, I don't think so. And I know what the guy is going to do, right? He's trying to, to buy some drugs is what he was trying to do. And so Javier opens up his phone and hands it to him. And I was like, okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And so we talked to the guy for, probably 10, 15 minutes while he was waiting for his guy to show up. And at the end of all that, what I learned was, here's a normal guy that has 4 kids, but he has a problem. And then I went to Javier and I said, "Hey man, why did you do that? Why did you just give up, like, what I perceive, my phone is my whole life, to a guy that could just take it and walk away?" And he's like, "Well, he needed it more than I do." And I was like, wow, okay. And so like at that moment, very pivotal moment of my life, I started to dive more into Javier, who he was as a person. And so that's what led us into the conversation of he, at a younger age, had a very unfortunate accident. Not his fault, but it was a life-altering accident where his family had lost their home, lost everything. And then once his rehab was complete and his settlement, kind of came in, he's like, I was on a mission to find a place that I could store this money, that it couldn't be taken, I wouldn't pay taxes on it, and all these things that we talk about IBC. And so that's how I got my second introduction to this. And so we talked a lot about it, high level detail, talking about the mindset shift that needs to happen with all of this. And of course, I come running home to my awesome wife, Jen, and I'm like, "Hey, check this out. We got to get into this." And so I'm the guy with 1,000 ideas, right? And I defer to my CEO wife, and she shoots 90% of them down.
That's right.
Including
That's what a
this
good
one.
CEO should do.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well done.
Yeah. So including this idea, she basically said, "Well, that's not going to work. That's dumb." I think I'm actually quoting, "That's dumb." So, fast forward a little bit of a time later, my dad passes away. That's, I don't know, it's been about 5 years now, I guess. And, going through all of that was, hard times, all this other stuff. And then one day Jen comes home and says, "Hey, that whole like infinite banking thing, I want to know just a little bit more about it," because she was at a meeting I'll let her tell the story. It's easier.
Yeah. So basically, I got to sit in on a client meeting. I'd been working with this client and they were potentially going through the sale of their business. So they were going to come into a large windfall of money. And so they were sitting down meeting with this person. I don't know exactly his title, but basically they were trying to, leverage a life insurance product to fund and use that over time to then basically afford their lifestyle and be able to leverage the cash value to sustain their lifestyle and cash flow needs over time. And so going back to what Jeff was saying, coming home, like he had a lot of time in a beer can, right, at 30,000 feet. So there was a lot of things that these two people would talk about. So a lot of times he would come home and share these, and I just would shake my head because, the first time, we were, pilots don't make a lot of money. So we were young in our early careers, and the CPA and me, we had a budget spreadsheet, and it was like, you get paid on the first, and here's when our bills are due. And then those beers, that he talks about, those add up too. And so I was like, no, that's not going to work. So I wasn't receptive at that point just because it didn't work at that point. But it was, like, I think I listened to one of the podcasts where you're just kind of dropping seeds. This is what Jeff likes to do because he knows how I work. And so I think just these little pivotal moments have kind of, finally grown into where we're at now.
Right. And so go ahead.
I'm sure you're not as petty as I am, because when Jen came home with that, I might have said, "It's not going to work. That's dumb." Right. But I'm sure you didn't say that when she brought it home. What did you
No,
say?
I was like, oh, wait, say that again. Okay. I will go chase this down.
Right. Say
And-
that again. Exactly.
right,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, wait, I was right. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to wrap that up real quick. So what I did was I went back to Javier, and he gave me, the Infinite Banking, Become Your Own Banker book. Read that. I had to read it twice. One, I'm a slow reader, and two, I really needed to understand it. And then Jen read it, and it was, the right time to start getting going. And so what I did is I interviewed with 3 or 4 different groups, because there's obviously different groups out there that do this.
Yeah.
And we landed with you guys simply because I felt that we were a great fit from the standpoint of we could have, planning conversations, we could have tax conversations because of the recovering CPA in both Jen and Anthony. And that's how we started working together, which it's been, we've been going on pretty close to 5 years now, I think. So,
Yeah. Okay. So now one thing I thought was interesting, Jeff, you had told me that there was like a common text chain with some of these pilots talking about infinite banking, which I think is unusual. Can you kind of share maybe how that got started and how that was beneficial?
yeah. So, when you start initially, going down this path and, you're really learning how to have a mindset change of, what this is, how it works. There's let's just say few people out there that want to at least acknowledge or have the conversation of what, IBC is and mindset shift and all this other stuff. And so, I was just talking to a guy one day at the airline. And he's like, "Oh, well, we've got, a WhatsApp, do you want me to add it to you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, let's check it out." So, from there, what I learned is that, this group of pilots, they're all, majority of them are all entrepreneurial spirits as well. Right. And that was the main theme of that is being able to bounce ideas off each other, how we're using the policies, is this the right strategic move at this time, with the money and stuff like that. So, it's been a great resource.
And that's what Nelson talks in his book, the importance of being in a community to be able to share these ideas. On that note, we are working on building our own community. We're evaluating the proper platform. So our goal is to have that live probably in Q3 or Q4. Jen and Jeff, when you got your first policy, you mind sharing how you decided to come up with your deposits?
Yeah, that's a great question. So going back to the idea of, shifting away from conventional thinking, right? So the conventional thought process is, I'm gonna hoard, money in a 401k and, chase bank, right? That's really what the conventional thinking is. So what we decided to do was, okay, we're not going to contribute into our 401ks anymore because, after learning about them, they're not that great. We talk about it all the time, right? You can't touch the cash, it becomes taxable, all the pitfalls of them, right? And then most recently, just this last week, there's an article that came out and said, hey, we might actually stop, allowing for deductions when you put in your 401k. So, it's the low hanging fruit of revenue for the government. So like we knew it was coming at some point and it probably will happen. So in any case, what we decided to do was take what our annual contribution, the max was, and said, okay, we're going to take this, we're going to pay the taxes on it now because we're in a low tax, period, and just shift it over into the IBC. And that's what our base, policies are that we have to pay every year. And then when we have deals that close through different avenues that we have in business, we use that for paid up additions, and we fund our policies to the max every single year, or as much as we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you got those first policies, what did you do with the cash value?
Well, so we have this shiny new object, right? And I think that you had talked about it in your podcast. Folks will get a policy, and and just being fully transparent, we front loaded some cash into it. It's not a huge amount, but just a little amount. So we had something to work with, like right off the bat. My partner, Javier, one of my great friends, the guy I just told you a story about, he was into short-term lending, like 24, 36-month lending on Airbnbs. And he's in a community that does that, and they do a bunch of other stuff. And he wanted to partner up on a bigger deal. So, we decided that we were going to go do a deal with Javier, and we did lending on our first deal. And, it was a very good, interesting first step. But it's scary when you take you write a check. It's not your cash, but you write a check for, the amount, and you're like, okay, well, I hope this works. But, there's a comfort, and this is, maybe a lot of people don't talk about this, but the comfort in knowing that, the policy is a very large backstop for the future and your family. So you're more willing to maybe take on just a little bit more risk, knowing that there's a backstop in the policy.
I also think it was scary writing that first check, because that was kind of our first leap into a non-traditional 401k type investment. But there was also freedom, right? We're writing this check. We don't have to get approval for it. We don't have to tell people what we're doing with it. It was our decision.
Right.
And there was no personal guarantee. We didn't have to put our house up, it was like, wow, we can just write this check and make this investment.
Well, and that's the difference. Before, you really weren't, with no disrespect, weren't an investor. We're just throwing money into an account and somebody else is doing something to it. This was the time where you were the real investor. Like, you made the decisions, and which means you got the fruits, but you also, would have to pay if things did not work out. So how did things work out in that deal?
So that first deal actually turned into 2 other deals. So a total of 3 with that particular venture. They turned out great. We've got all of our cash back, plus, a rate. And that particular lending aspect with Javier has, wound down, which is fine, but we're still open to doing stuff together. And yeah, it's great.
Awesome. What other, you'd mentioned you're an entrepreneur at heart. What other ventures have you done or looked at?
So, we live right down the street from the golf course here, and we get pitched stuff all the time, or at least try to get pitched stuff all the time. And so, a couple of those pitches have led into a virtual reality deal. It's called EVA. You can go to eva.gg to look at it, more in depth. But yeah, that particular play for us was a value add play. So we put money into it as a startup. The first of its kind here in the United States is right down the road from us. And so that's a play that we're in right now. So we're an LP in that play, which, it's good. I also bought an LP position in a solar company, which then that solar company turned around and asked me to participate in some commercial industrial development type stuff for the company, which I enjoy doing. Like, solar is honestly one of my biggest passions. And then the private equity group that bought that company they asked me to come on and maybe lead a utility scale solar development. So that's in its very infant stages. That's a very long runway, probably 3 to 5 years. Let's see, what else have we done?
Land flipping.
Yeah,
business.
and we've done land flipping. So
I do want to go into that, but before we do, Cameron, LP stands for limited partner, right? GP is general partner.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
One thing
Appreciate that.
because I know a little bit more detail about this solar thing, and I think you're being very you're downplaying it. It's something that could be a big deal. What the interesting point is, for you to get into that, be able to get in that room and in that conversation, you had to start. And you started in as LP, limited partner. Then you started being around other individuals, and that being around that circle of influence, which led to bigger opportunities. So the point is, oftentimes they talk about your net worth is your network, and the importance of who you are, of who you're hanging around with.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why Cameron's so lucky to be with you.
You can get 2 points for that one, Jeff.
Hey,
that was good.
Yay. Wow.
That's good and true.
Okay. Yeah, I feel blessed. I feel blessed right now. Yeah. It's amazing.
I 100% agree with you, Anthony.
That Cameron's lucky, or
absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. Yes. You're both very lucky. We are
very lucky.
But yes, being able, right, to put yourself, or be in a position, I should say, around people that are like-minded makes a very big difference in what outcomes could be. So.
Yeah. But I'll point out too, I think kind of the mindset change too, even for myself, because again, being that CPA, a little more risk adverse by nature. But just being in the line of work I was doing and seeing a lot of people entrepreneurs and just seeing their books and their financials, but then also meeting the person behind those and no disrespect to them, but and it just kind of took this moment where, okay, if this person can build this empire, why can't we?
Yes.
I love that attitude.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's, speaking of building an empire, let's talk about this land flipping business here. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah. So we did the Land Geek thing a while back, and that was, it was a good run for us. And, over time, things changed. So we decided that we were going to go off in a little bit different direction from, just the typical Land Geek way of doing things. And listen, I'll be honest with you, like the Land Geek guys, they taught us, process, they taught us how to, build infrastructure, payment systems, and truth be told, those payment systems right now, the notes that are coming in right now, are key, to keeping the business going. 2023 was a very rough year for that particular venture. I don't think that we even broke even on it, and there's a lot of reasons for that, right? But the notes that we built kept us going. So where we're at currently, last year, well, I guess it was 2 years ago now, we came across a piece of property that was had some severe title deficiencies, and so we sent out a mailer, and this guy calls me one day. It turns out the guy lives like 5 minutes down the street, which is even greater because we got to go have, coffee and, have a face-to-face meeting and kind of just lay out like what our thoughts were on the whole deal. And so essentially the deal was approximately 156 acres just north of the Dallas area here, for about an hour northwest of the Dallas area. These guys that were in control of the property, there was 4 of them. They could not, do anything with the property. They couldn't gift it. They couldn't sell it. They couldn't do anything because of the title issues. And I said to the guy, I said, look, give us a shot. Like we think that we have the team in place. And truth be told, I thought we had the team in place. But there was some doubt in that. So we reached out to, one of our attorneys. And I think at the time we had like 6 or 7 different attorneys. I think I'm up to 10 now, which, I love them all, but I don't like to pay for their wooden floors every time I talk to them. But, those are all necessary evils. Anyways, so we called up, our attorney and said, hey, we've got this problem. And he goes, oh yeah, that's not a problem. I do this all the time. Well, it took a year and several tens of thousands of dollars, to actually get the property in our possession in a court case. So, the numbers on that deal in particular, I'll just share them because I think there's a lot of value in all this. So we purchased the property for around $350,000. We leveraged it through a bank. The bank that we used is a agricultural bank. So our terms with them were incredible. If you ever have the chance to work with those types of banks, they do not work inside the Freddie Fannie, umbrella. They're very different, structured very, very differently. So we negotiated with them that we would pay them one time a year, interest only, until we got the property sold. And so we have the property under contract. It's going to close at the end of April. The total revenue on that deal is about 1.55 million, somewhere close to that on that deal. So that's one of our biggest victories. But again, like we probably would have never gone down that path if we weren't, trying to, build our own empire, so to speak.
Now let's dive into that a little bit deeper. You took a bank loan for $350,000. How much cash came out of your pocket?
$1.91.
Okay.
So
Can we round it to $2? Is that all right?
No. The
CPA and me wore off on him. Have to be very precise.
When we were closing on the property, the title company was like, we made an error here. It's $1.91. It's $1.91, and like so we would just stroke the check for $1.91, right? And the reason that happened is because we got the property at such a great loan to value. Mm-hmm. They financed it at 100% for us. So in that instance, it made 100% sense for us to use the bank as leverage to fund this deal. So our total out of pocket, even when we close on it in April, will be $1.91.
Wow.
Okay, and it's projected to sell for 1.5.
Yeah. So what we did is we needed a little cash flow injection. Mm-hmm. So we sold off a portion of it already. So we've already got that cash back. So, but the total across the two parcels is about 1.55, I believe it is.
Okay. So you already got your $2 back.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I had to, I have a partner. Yeah. I have a partner.
Okay.
I have a partner, so I have to split that with them.
I'm doing some easy math, but you sell it for a little bit more than 1.5. There's a loan on it. Let's just round it to 400 because maybe there's some interest. But sure. So maybe there's some closing costs as well. So yeah, that's maybe fair. You might net $1 million.
Yep.
Okay, and you put in $1.98.
Yes.
How much do you care what your rate of return is on your policy?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Just trying to clarify, the point I'm trying to make is the real value of infinite banking is having that control and that freedom. And, as much as I'd love IBC to take credit for this deal, the credit goes to you guys for being open to not following the herd and becoming a good steward of your money and taking the time. And this is a great deal, which is an anomaly. I would imagine you're not expecting to do maybe another $1.98, or with inflation, maybe $2.45,
Sure.
right? This isn't something that could be replicated per se, but you guys spent some time learning the land business. And because I remember talking to you guys spent some time in coaching, right?
Yep.
And you guys learned the craft, and then you even took what other people's learned or taught you, and then you kind of learned your own around some other ways. And so the real value of infinite banking is, I think, it opens up the conversation to take those blinders off. Yeah. Just to kind of learn that we can be in control of our money. We can build an empire, and you are a great example of that. So I appreciate you guys sharing the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff, Jen, is there a lesson or maybe some advice you might share here, looking back at the way you guys have used the policy with maybe somebody that's listening that is where you guys were when you took that first loan, right? A little nervous. Any advice or suggestions you give them?
I'll let Jen speak to that, because I'm the guy that just goes all out on things. Like I'm very good at shiny new objects and squirrels, and so if I see something that I really want to go after, I'm probably going to go do that. So I'll let Jen answer that one.
Yeah, good job. It's hard because I will say I've always kind of been the one to shoot down all the ideas. And so it does take some discipline, right? We still have 2 young kids. So we don't want to be so far out there that we find ourselves in a position that we're not comfortable with. So I still think there's discipline there in what we're doing and being good stewards of our family empire wealth that we want to pass along to our kids. But I also look at, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? As long as we can still have our family unit and figure a way out, then let's try it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. How old are your kids? How have the conversations around money gone so far?
Oh, that's a great question, Cameron. That's the first good one you've asked all day. Right. That's 2 points. I'm trying to get to 10 points on zingers. So we're at 4
man.
No,
Jeff, that was 33 minutes in and you killed it. That was good.
Dude, that was hard. That was good.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
So we have an 8-year-old, so we have an 8-year-old boy and an 11-year-old girl.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. So I'm literally the guy that I gave my daughter a silver eagle a couple of years ago out of my very small collection of those. I said, hey, take this and go buy your books at the book fair. And so she's like, okay, I guess. And so she walks in there and, they try to hand her a silver, or she hands them a silver dollar, and like, well, we can't take this. And I told them that they were going to say this, right? And I told Raylan, I was like, look, just tell her, like, this is money, this is actual money. Like, you probably should be able to take it. Anyways, that was the first thing that I kicked off, conversations about money with our kids. Right. And I try to, I want them to know what we're doing. I want them to know what we're building. I want them to know why we're doing these things, because they're talking about in class right now, and I think it's actually in my son's class, the 8-year-old class, like, oh, you need to put your money in a safe place, in a bank. Well, I don't think that way. Like, I literally do not think that way. And I have a private banker, at Chase Bank, and anytime a very large deposit hits one of our multitude of accounts with them, I get a phone call. Hey, yeah.
Nosy.
and I love the guy, and he knows now not to call me, because I'm going to suck it out of their bank as soon as I practically can. Right. And so to further that, Chase Bank, which, don't get me wrong, Chase has been fine to us. So, like, we've been with them for many, many, many years. You know, they've got suckers, you know, for kids when you go in the bank. And I always remind my kids, hey, suckers put their money in banks, and you know, that's just the truth.
That's good.
And I will literally say that in front of my banker, and he knows everything that I'm doing, right? So the conversations moving forward with our kids is, you know, I'm actually going to buy them the Tuttle Twins books. I was kind of delaying just a little bit because if I looked at it correctly, like there's a small kid version and like a big kid version, but I wanted my daughter, you know, at 11 to get the big kid version. So I thought like probably now is the right time to do that. So yeah, we're going to continue those conversations. We're going to teach them, you know, I've already showed the kids the policies, you know, they look at them, they're, you know, it's got big numbers in there and they're like, oh, okay. But I do not want them to grow up like the majority of kids grow up, that they have no idea what's going on inside the family, you know, financial world and why we make decisions and how we do things. Like they need to know those things so that they're more educated when they get older.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing.
Now, another good book you might want to check out is The Richest Boy in Athens by one of our coaches, Tim Boyle. But
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. He was on your podcast just recently, and I actually went and looked that book up already.
Okay,
Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, you know, one thing you'd mentioned that you told your kids what you're doing and why. You mind? Are you open to sharing some of your why?
Yeah. I can share mine, and then Jen, if she wants to talk about it. So, I remember being about 12 years old, maybe 11, maybe 12, I think. Yeah, I was around 12. We were in Hawaii on a family vacation, and I remember my dad being super upset. Like really, my dad never got upset about anything. And what was going on during that time frame while we were on vacation was the .com bust and him losing millions of dollars. And, you know, truth be told, right, if he would have just left his money and were in there and not had a big knee jerk reaction, right, he probably would have been okay. But that always sticks in my mind of not you, but if I give up, you know, control of our family money, our family assets to a money manager or, you know, an index fund or something like that, then I don't have the ability to do what I want with it. So that sticks out in my brain. And then the other thing that sticks out is that when my dad passed away, you know, like I said, there was a little bit of money, and it was stuck in a CD, and you know, the CD paid like whatever 2.5% or whatever that was, and in my mind, I'm like, we're not even breaking even on inflation on this at all. Like we're actually going backwards. We're losing money. We're losing purchasing power, and so like that was a big eye opener for me of like, hey, we need to do multiple things here. You know, we need to have legacy, you know, wealth for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to control, you know, the asset. We need to be able to break even on inflation. You know, when that includes taxes and everything else, you start looking at the big picture. Like the majority of people are moving backwards in buying power, and I don't want to be that guy.
That's
Great,
cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks.
Anything you want to add, Jen?
No, he did good on that one.
Good job.
I go, yeah, guys. Oftentimes, right? You talked about when you guys first started, you initiated that first policy. One of the questions that we often get is, how did you come to realize when you needed a second policy? Do you remember going back?
Yeah. So when we started, we actually started 4 policies at once. So we started one for myself, one for Jenifer, and then our kids. So we actually started with 4. And that was mainly because, you know, we had, you know, the 401k
Redirect
numbers. Yeah. That we were going to use. But then shortly thereafter, when we started seeing, you know, this thing work, I think it was probably inside of 6 months, like we were like, okay, we're going to need more places to put money because we're already, you know, at the MEC on these things. where are we going to store this? I'm certainly not going to put it in Chase Bank so they can make 500% on my money. I mean, I want to go make 500% on my money. So that's kind of how we got to, multiple policies. And I think
well, and I was not quite 40 as well. So we capitalized on being below. Jeff was already over 40. So then that second time, I know, poor guy.
Wow, grandpa.
Yeah. So, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen with your health, right? So we had the ability to, establish more policies and prepare for that and still capitalize on good health and age working in our favor.
Yeah. And I want to touch on the capitalization part of it. So, a few years ago, one of my really good friends, he got into a devastating car accident. Like he will probably not be able to do what he loves to do again. I mean, thank God he's still alive and we play golf together. Right. But he should not have survived that. And, he luckily for us in the airline business, we have a very good long-term disability setup that we negotiated for. So like that helps his family out dramatically. Right. But, going back to we needed to capitalize on, current health things, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Are you going to get in a car wreck, or are you going to be like my best friend down in Florida right now, just on Wednesday or Tuesday, got into a pretty bad skiing accident that he's going to need surgery on. Right. So all of these things, right. You don't know what's going to happen. So you have to start thinking of, okay, I'm going to, put these things in place. I'm going to, change my mindset. I'm going to, create a backstop for my family. I'm going to create a legacy for my family. And those are all the things that we thought about at the beginning of all of this.
Perfect. And, Cher, you also, when we got those second policies soon after, you had the expectation that you were going to have these future windfalls. So you want to share how we planned for those future windfalls?
Yeah. So, what we did in particular with Jen, because she was under 40, and I don't know if the people on the podcast know this or not, but so, if you're under 40, you can take, I think it's 40 times your earnings, to get you a maximum death benefit. If you go over 40, it's 20 times your earnings. Right. So, at the time we were like, okay, let's set something up now with convertible term. And so we did a very large, face value convertible term in two different policies, one at 10 and one at 20 years, because we're, expecting, some windfalls coming in from these investments. Right. And so that's how we set up for the future. Now we may need to do more. In fact, we're starting 2 more policies for our kids that will help them out dramatically as they get older and want to go to school, if they want to go to school, or, start a family, whatever that is.
Perfect.
What would you guys say to somebody that's maybe on the fence with IBC?
Do something, like literally just do something. And the something that I would do is, if you're on the fence and, you're thinking about, cash flows and now and the future, probably start a convertible term. What that does for you, it allows for you later to tranche that down to get a whole life policy to start building cash values, or sticking cash into the policies. And then it also, provides a benefit if something were to happen, to you. Like I cannot stress this enough to anybody that would be listening. You could have the best well laid out plans, but a car accident, a skiing accident, anything can happen. And I would start doing something now about it.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing. Jeff, Jennifer, what do you think, kind of looking back now, what do you think the problem was that IBC solved for you guys?
I think it's an easy answer. It bought us back our time with our family. I know that sounds maybe a little odd, but that's the truth, right? It got us the ability to be entrepreneurs to figure out a way to leverage the policies to create time with our kids and play golf, so I love golf. I know that I'm much better than you, Cameron, at golf.
Another point.
That's right.
But
but it gives us as a couple the ability to go play golf together or do things together and stay as connected as we can as things as life goes up and down. Like that's important.
I'd like to say thanks for sharing, but I think I won't this time.
Am I 5 points away or am I 4? Where am I at?
Just keep going. You still need some more to meet Mark Podolsky.
You're swinging. Yeah, man. You're swinging.
The quality has been pretty darn good, though.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
I didn't get the memo for today that we were wearing designer hoodies. So, I mean, I would have put a designer hoodie on.
It says Nike, but it's really Gucci.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, you guys shared some great stories of how infinite banking has helped and some of the advantages of infinite banking. However, on this podcast, we want to talk about, the good about IBC and the not so good, right? Do you mind sharing from the client's perspective? Were there some things about IBC that you weren't big fans of?
You want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to say the elephant in the room. I don't know.
The elephant.
But the time it takes for the policy to become efficient, right? Really, you look at it, you're like, I just gave you how much and I only have this much available. So, that's that initial upfront investment. Now, but what's great about the illustration is you can clearly see at what year it becomes efficient. And that's for me, that's a number girl, I want to see that. And so, every year when we get our updated values, it's like, all right, I think we've already got one or two. I don't know. No, I think one or two of our policies are already efficient. So $1 in, $1 out. And that to me just proves this concept.
Yeah. I would say the drag, and a lot of the conversations I have with folks, right? They're like, oh, well, it costs so much. Mm-hmm. Everything costs a lot. Like even Anthony's coffee there, he probably paid $8 for that, coffee, right? So, it's truly, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? Right? Are you trying to be a millionaire, or are you trying to be a wealthy person? Right? In my mind, a wealthy person is somebody that controls time, and so, yes, there's some drag on it. Yes, there's a barrier to entry on it. Right. But, hopefully, like I think, Jen just said, we've got one or two policies that are already efficient, and, mine's not efficient, because I'm a dude. That's just how it is. Right. But women become more efficient quicker.
Right.
And as we've proven, you're much older than Jen. Right.
Yes. But, and then maybe there's like some, unsung, stuff about IBC too, being an entrepreneur, being in partnerships, partnerships are great until they're not, right? And partnerships they can elevate you, or they can bring you down, they can fall apart, and all those things are heartbreaking, right? At whatever level, that people deal with them. So, as a big package, there's always going to be, a con to it, to the pros. And that's just the reality.
Well, and I think too, you do have to be disciplined on here's what the cash flow require. It's not like a 401k. It's not your paycheck, it's automatically deducted and it goes away. And you have to be diligent, and it's easy. We still have the moments where it's like the money's there, we'll go spend it. So, you do have to be responsible. And when you're setting these policies up and Anthony, you're honest about that. And it's like, we don't want to get ourselves into a position where we can't pay those base premiums. So I think we've done a good job managing that, but with the realization that things can always happen. But I think at least for us so far, we haven't had any issues there being able to still pay those base premiums.
Oh, they're chatting each other.
Uh-oh.
You know that secrets don't make friends, right?
We had a comment that came in on the live stream, and Anthony was looking at me as usual for guidance on how to handle this, and so I told him, no, we'll save it for later. So it's all right, buddy. I got you. Okay. We'll get through this together.
Thank you, Cameron. You feel so much better now.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Speaking of guidance, and just to thank you, Jeff, Jen, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing the ways that you guys have kind of built kind of this empire, right? This using infinite banking to your advantage over the years. So really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that we could be here to do it. And thank you for always being available for us to bounce ideas off of and plan and all the stuff that what this is all about.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for the great zingers with Cameron. Like, I was literally laughing for
if we had more time, I'm sure he had a few more up his sleeve.
I do.
Yeah,
but
I will say that we're in 52 minutes, man, and you have like 5 or 6. Like, Mark had 10, like I think in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But next time, now you got time to work on making fun of Cameron, because it's one of the fun things that at least that I enjoy. Again, yes. We want to thank you guys for being so transparent and being able to share your story with our listeners. And I think it provided a lot of value.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Go make a fantastic day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you like this video, I know you'll like this one. And if you want to learn how investors use infinite banking to increase their returns and lower their taxes, check this out. And if you have some questions and want to see if infinite banking is for you, hop on a discovery call with us. Link for that will be in the description.